Welcome back to Reframe the Future. We continue to speak with change makers across the health landscape, look at the directions of travel of the industry, where the greatest impact lies, and what advice our guests might offer about how to reframe the future of healthcare. Today's guest is Andrew Bruce Smith, an author, specialist digital PR, social media, SEO and analytics trainer and consultant. There isn't anything Andrew doesn't know when it comes to measurement. And for us working in healthcare communications, we take measurement very seriously, or at least we should do, because measurement means more than a few clicks. It can mean the difference between good healthcare or none at all.
Hi, my name's Andrew Bruce Smith. I've spent 35 years looking at PR measurement and doing my level best over those 3.5 decades to try and improve and refine it. So thank you for having me today.
Absolute pleasure, Andrew. We're delighted to have you on here. And we're also joined by my colleague, Anna. Anna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Chris. I'm really excited to be here today and to be speaking to Andrew about all things measurement. It'll be really interesting to see how we can show the true impact of our work.
Fantastic. It's going to be a brilliant discussion. We're really looking forward to it. And we're going to get straight into it by asking our first question.
Great. So we're going to start off with measurement. So with a topic so broad as measurement, we thought we'd start with the basics, or in your view, what should be perceived as the basics? So before starting any activity in communications, what do you think we should be thinking about?
Well, there's no rocket science. It always should start with objectives and audiences. So when you describe it like that, you think, well, why all the fuss? Why does measurement still seem to be difficult, complex, complicated? And it's like many things that it's easy to say objectives and audiences, but that conceals a lot of questions that aren't perhaps properly addressed or other related issues. I guess one of the key challenges really is around what I describe as vagueness, either vagueness in the objective, such as raise awareness. What does that actually mean? What do we mean by awareness? Raising it by how much? Why do we want to raise it by how much? How does that relate to outcomes, behavioural change? Equally, in the area of audiences, it's typically around vagueness of definition. Are we absolutely clear about who it is that we really are attempting to reach? Even if we have a clear definition, do we have some sense of how big that audience is? Because again, the size of the audience will have a large bearing on the right combination mix of activity that's intended to generate an end result, with the obvious caveat that everyone faces the same constraints of time, resource, budget, etc. So I guess that really kind of sums up the typical kinds of issues that people face when trying to define exactly what their communications objectives, as well as relating those to organisational objectives, are, and again around audiences.
That's great, Andy. Thank you. So, I mean, from our point of view, we always start with insight related to our audience. Where are they? What will interest them the most? Who will inspire them to take action? What will inspire them to take action? But you talked about vagueness, and I think that's really important, because the whole part of an objective is creating a smart objective. The S in that is being specific. What mistakes do you think people are making? How can we make it easier for them to think about audiences, think about what we're trying to achieve with our campaigns? Do you have any really great examples of a good campaign that did it really neatly?
So great questions. Thank you for those. If we look at where people typically finding it hard, difficult, or not being as clear as they ought to be. Partly it's related to trying to understand as well, not just where we find those audiences, but any insights into how those audiences actually use or behave, particularly around in the arena of digital. It's one thing to say we're pretty confident that our target audience are present on, say, Facebook. but do we know or have a sense of how those people actually use the platform? And I guess what I'm referring to there is a concept that I describe as the passive information consumer. People often talk about engagement, and that the engagement is the goal. But actually, if you look at, I guess, pretty much any platform, whether it's TikTok or Facebook, LinkedIn, or even the web, we're generally passive information consumers. If you take Twitter as an example, and I appreciate that in very recent times, Twitter's going through some interesting changes, but I think it was Pew Internet in the US did some research last year, which seemed to indicate that a relatively small proportion of Twitter users are responsible for pretty much all the engagement and activity on it. And then within that, an even tinier amount were genuinely responsible for proactively posting and using the platform, i.e. the real people that are present on the platform largely sit back, consume information. They don't like things. They don't click links. They don't reshare them. They're passively consuming information. So I guess that relates to always attempting to not just define the audience, not just understand where they are, but see what we can do to understand how do those audiences actually use a platform. Very simply, it will help us to determine, is this a channel that's worthwhile focusing on, because we will certainly reach people, but we shouldn't sort of set a really high bar for our expectations around engagement. I mean, we're welcome to set them, but we're likely to encounter disappointment if we're attempting to get people to behave in a way in a platform that they just don't actually do. So all these things kind of feed into planning campaigns, channel selection, messaging, creative activity, setting benchmarks and baselines for what should success look like. How can we claim that we've overachieved, or if we're not getting the results that we were hoping for, getting that insight and understanding quick enough so that we can actually change what we're doing.
Great. So that's the end of our first video in the mini-series with Andrew. Thanks for joining us today, Andrew. Watch out for our next video, where we'll be discussing the recent trends in communication and the impact on trust.